Right, Bastille soap. I'm making a very plain Bastille soap because my brother has psoriasis, which affects his hands rather badly, and a lot of commercial soaps are a little too harsh on him, so I make our own soap. And some of the ingredients we'll need for this particular one, I keep my recipe on my phone, so I'll need 383 grams of distilled water, 255 grams of sodium hydroxide, which is caustic soda, which is the lye which makes the oil into the soap. I'll need 1150 grams, just over a litre of olive oil, and I'll need 462 grams of coconut oil. I'll also need 230 grams of castor oil. Castor oil gives wonderful bubbles. I also use about a tablespoon of stearic acid, and the stearic acid helps to make a nice hard bar. Now this recipe will bring me about 16 generous bars of soap. Now, safety first. We always make sure you're wearing safety goggles, and when you're handling lye solution, make sure you're wearing some industrial quality gloves to protect you. Additional things you'll need are a set of scales, because we weigh all the ingredients. We don't measure them, we weigh them. You'll also need a stick blender in order to blend all this together and bring it to trace, what we call bringing it to trace. You'll need some moulds. I use 2 of these type of moulds. These are silicone moulds, and they're reinforced on the outside, and they make a really nice square loaf of soap, which I cut up each one of those into about 8 bars each. I put that on a big pizza tray to keep it secure in the oven. And we're doing this by what we know as a cold process oven process, which is, for me, is the easiest way to make soap, and I'm all about easy, lazy recipes, just as I am with cooking. You can get these other soap moulds, which this one is another silicone soap mould, or you could use cupcake moulds, silicone cupcake moulds, which are equally as good, you know. But I prefer to use the bars, and to that end I've got this gadget, which you put your bar in, you stop it up against then, and you cut each bar off to a size that you can adjust using those screws. And you'll need a mixing bowl, of course. Okay, let's get started. First thing I want to do is make up my solution of lye, because that is a chemical reaction and that starts to heat up. So to that end I'm going to put on my safety equipment. So I set up my measuring jug and tear off the weight to 0, and then I add my distilled water to 383 grams. Bang on, 383 grams. And then I need to put on my gloves and measure 255 grams of lye. Now, before mixing this, it's very important to put it in a well ventilated area, and you avoid breathing the fumes from this. So I'm just going to add that into my distilled water and don't do it the other way round, otherwise you'll have a problem. Always pour the lye into the water, not the other way round. Very important. And you need to do this in a heat resistant jug or a heat resistant vessel. And then we stir that to mix, and now that's giving off very caustic fumes, so avoid breathing that. I'm going to put that up on there, and I just allow the chemical reaction to take place, and that will heat it up, and once the chemical reaction is complete it will start to cool down. While that's happening, we can start measuring out our oils. So the first oil I want is 230 grams of castor oil. 230 grams of castor oil. I now tare weight that again down to 0, and then add 462 grams of coconut oil. .462 grams of coconut oil, and I can now tare that down to 0, and then add 1150 grams of olive oil. You can use olive oil pomace, you don't have to use expensive extra virgin olive oil for this. And that's up to 150 grams. Now that's how our oil's measured out. Right, so now we need the oils and the lye mixture to be round about 38 degrees Celsius. Now if I check the oil temperature, it's only at about 21 at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bowl into a warm oven and allow that to heat up for a short while. Okay, the lye mixture has stopped reacting and it's not giving off such terrible fumes at the moment. So, but what has happened is it's increased significantly in temperature. So let's just have a look at that and where it's at now. That's at 75 degrees Celsius. So we want to get the oil and the lye mixture within about 38 degrees Celsius of each other, something like that. So to that end I'm raising the temperature of the oils, which will also help to melt down the harder oils like the coconut oil. Alright. So we're just waiting for that to happen. Right, now making sure we have our safety goggles on. What we can do is we can mix in the oils. Okay, now making sure we're wearing our safety equipment, what I want to do is check my turn that down a little bit to start with. I don't want it coming up to trace too quickly. And then we introduce the lye mixture into the oils. It's important you make sure you got a big enough bowl for this. And then as soon as that's in there, you need to start mixing it up. The heat of the lye mixture will melt any remaining amounts of coconut oil. And the process that we're going for now is something called saponification. Saponification is where the lye reacts with the oils to create soap. Once all the bits are melted, I can actually crank up the speed at which it mixes it. And what you're looking for is what they call a trace, which we haven't reached yet. As you take your device out, if it doesn't trace on the surface, there's a very, very tiny trace at the moment, but I want a thicker one than that because I like to work with it a little bit more saponified than that. Right, once it gets to this stage, what I like to do now, this is when I introduce, if you are adding any scented oils to it or anything like that, this is now the time to do it. I'm actually going to add about a tablespoon of stearic acid in with it. And the reason I do that is it makes a nice hard bar that doesn't disintegrate too quickly. So, and now back on with the safety equipment and mix that in. This is the time to introduce any essential oils or scents that you want to introduce into your soap. I don't want any. You have to work on the stearic acid to make sure it breaks up. And as you see, it's starting to trace a little more now. And generally, olive oil soaps are slightly slower to trace than using other oils or fats. And there you see that's now coming up to a nice trace. You see how that prints a trace on top of this soap. That's about where I want it. Just make sure all my stearic acid is dissolved. Now it's time to transfer this to the moulds. Try and pour it in as a steady stream into your mould. Right, the next thing I want to do is I want to even that up. So the first thing I'm going to do is give it a slap, like that. And then the next thing I want to do is remove my gloves, because we're at the safe stage now, and use a chopstick to put a swirly pattern in it. I like to go right into the corners to make sure the soap is moulded right into the corners. You can put all sorts of patterns on here, but I'm not so fancy. And for any of you out there that are thinking, oh, I can't do that, if you're a cook, you can do this because it's just cooking. That's all it is. You're cooking soap. Right, now we've done that, all that remains is to transfer that into the oven. Now the oven needs to be at its lowest setting. Mine's at 50 degrees Celsius. So what I do is I now put that into my oven, and then the oven will speed up the curing process of this soap. Now I want to leave that for about 15 to 20 minutes before checking it, and then I'll take you on to the next stage. I can't overstress the importance of wearing safety equipment when you're handling lye and lye solution. It's very important to wear safety goggles to keep any splashes out of your eyes, and safety gloves to keep it off your skin. If you do get any on your skin, make sure you rinse it off thoroughly with cold water. Alright, okay, let's talk about this soap cutter. This is one I bought online. Still got bits of soap on it. This is one I bought online, and I don't use it very often because I'm making 16 bars of soap at a time. So it's really works out economical in terms of the cost of the oils, which are minimal compared to the cost of a single bar of soap. I probably recovered my costs after using 3 bars of soap for the oils and the lye. You can get this online. Sodium hydroxide, caustic soda, pearl, and the pearl refers to the format of them in those little beads, and it rightfully states there that it's corrosive, so be careful when handling it. This is a 1 kilogram plastic container full of it. So once you've used it, throw away the plastic container and don't reuse the plastic container. Alright, there are many soap cutters on the market, and as for soap moulds, you don't have to use anything fancy. I've seen people make soap using Pringles boxes, pouring the soap into the Pringles box and letting it cure from there. So you don't have to invest in a lot of fancy equipment. I prefer to, because the amount of money I'm saving in making soap, and I do know a few people who are making a living from making and selling soap and hand creams and the like. Okay, there'll be the full recipe will be in the description below the video, and there'll be links at the end to some more serious soap making sites. You'll also maybe see 1 or 2 up in the links I show in the corner of the screen. Alright, so we're now waiting for the soap to cure in the oven, and that's why it's called cold process oven process. That's waiting now to cure in the oven, and I'll show you that stage as it happens. Alright, what I neglected to do was show you the gelling stage. As we apply low heat to these, they turn a jelly-like colour, and that jelly-like colour spreads, and it spreads to all the 4 corners till it's kind of clear and translucent. And the good thing about these moulds is you can see it as it comes into the corners, which are the last generally to cure effectively. Now the reason we do this gelling stage is so that you've got an instantly usable soap as soon as it's as soon as it's basically cooled down and comes out of the mould. And you don't have to go through a long curing process. However, the bars are still probably a little bit better if you leave them a week or 2 weeks, but you can use the soap straight away. What I've done is I let them cool off, and then I've left them 24 hours, and now they're ready to unmould. So I'll just take one out and show you it. They extract fairly simply from these moulds, he says, with bated breath, and you'll see it just drops out rather easily, and we've ended up with a decent bar of soap, a decent loaf of soap. And then what I do is I've got this preset to cut at a certain level. Now the stearic acid I put into my mix, it makes these rather easy to cut because they're nice and hard bars. So I just lay those down and I just go through and cut them up. I'm not cutting for commercial purposes, I'm just cutting for myself and my brother. So we should get a few decent bars out of this. I think I might have set it rather thick, so I might not get 8 bars out of each, but I'm not too concerned because it's the total amount of soap, and I think these bars are going to last quite a good time, because by the oven process we have actually expelled a lot of water from this soap and therefore drastically reduced the curing time for the soap and produced a bar that we can use straight away if we need to. And I'm running to the end of my last batch, so I thought I'd make some more and show you guys in the process. There's no real smell from it. It's not that obvious, and I'll keep these little bits on the side because I want to do a pH test, and I'll show you that in a second. So let's get this one out of his mould, and as you see the mould comes out fairly clean, so we just need to give them a rinse and use them again. There are a few bubbles that's formed on the side of that one, but nothing terrible to worry about. If you're making soap for your home, then this recipe is perfectly good. But if you want further instructions on how to make soap, first of all there's the video that gave me inspiration to make this soap, which I'll link above right now, and that will also be in the description. And there's also Soaping 101, who has got lots and lots of videos on every aspect of soap making, right from the beginning, right from beginners all the way up to advanced soap making with fancy patterns and other wonderful things. So that'll be in the links, that'll be in the description below, and it'll be in the links above this video and also at the end of the video. So we're getting a good few bars out of this. What I do with these now is I stick these in a cardboard box and just put them in an airing cupboard, or any cool dry place is perfect, and you can just stand them with a little bit of gap in between them if you can, and they'll cure lovely, and you'll end up with a nice hard bar. And this is quite a large bar, this is more of a bath bar I think. And there's another end, look. So there we go. What did we do? Let's see what we did. 2 there, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14 bars. So we got 7 plus these end cakes from that one. So I'm pretty pleased with that all in all. Soap making. I won't go into wrapping because that's really if you're thinking of selling it. But what I tend to do is I use a bit of sandwich waxproof paper or Logan wrap, and I put a label on the bottom and on the face, and that's a real quick, super easy way of wrapping soap, and it's also a way of sealing it because you use the adhesive label to seal it. I'll also give you a link to a professional soap maker from Canada called Ariane Arsenault, and she's really good, so you'll probably enjoy her videos too, so I'll link you to that as well. Okay, in order to test For pH, what we do is we get these little universal pH testing strips. There's a link in the description, and there's a link there's a link in the description for those. And all it is these little paper strips. And what I tend to do, because I like to save money, is just use half of one at a time. So there we go. And what I'll do is I'll just turn that into a bit of, lather it up a little bit, and then apply the paper to it, and that will give you an indication of where it is. And it's on the alkaline side, as you'll see there, and it's round about, matches up pretty much with pH 7. And every time I do this recipe, it comes out at the same pH. So if you're getting that pH, you've got yourself a good bar of soap. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to follow my channel, please subscribe, and be sure to click the bell icon to receive notification of all my upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.